Hello, my name is Tamani Taylor. I'm Chief Deputy Public Defender of the Solano County Public Defender's Office. And I'm here to talk to you about why I became a lawyer, what challenges I faced, and what I've learned. And to start out, why I became a lawyer was because growing up in my community, I did not have any examples of a professional Black woman. I'm biracial. My mother's white, my dad is Black. We grew up on a military base in the Philippines. And so most of the women that I came into contact with were just military wives. There are very few women captains or colonels that I don't think I'd ever saw any. I also certainly hadn't seen any um, women of color as colonels or captains or college educated. So the only real example of a professional Black woman I had ever had was seeing on TV The Cosby Show and Claire Huxtable. And she was a lawyer and she had a stable family. Her husband worked, she had children, and they were healthy. They had rules, there were expectations. And I grew up in a family where that was pretty much non existent. There was substance abuse, mental illness, domestic violence. And so Claire Huxtable kind of epitomized, was kind of a fantasy person that I could be once a week as a child. And so at about 8 years old, I had decided I wanted to be a lawyer. Some of the challenges to that becoming a lawyer were that I was the first person in my family to go to college. That includes extended family, aunts and uncles, grandparents, all of that. And so there wasn't a lot of understanding and support of what I needed when I did get into college. And I did get into college right after high school. And after my first year, I dropped out because I just didn't know how to um, be in that environment. And there was no one mentoring me through that environment at the time. And then a few years later, I got pregnant and I had my daughter. And right after having my daughter, her father spiraled really down into drugs. And of course, that results in domestic violence. And so we separated and I became a single mother. But, I had this little child to raise, and I never wanted her to think she was an excuse for why I didn't accomplish my dreams and goals. I wanted her to always know that she was my motivation for achieving my goals, no matter how difficult and how hard it would be. And so I went back to college. I worked and went to college and raised my child. And I graduated from UC Davis in 2003, and then, 2002. And then I took the LSAT and got accepted into Golden Gate University School of Law. And I went to law school. But again, I was the only person in my family to ever graduate from college, let alone go to law school. And so that did present challenges in that I had to learn how to thrive in that community. So what I did is I got mentors, and that really significantly helped me. And when I went to law school, I thought, oh, I'm just going to go and I'm going to be a transactional lawyer. I'm going to make a lot of money in the Pacific Rim. And I took a criminal law class. I think it was in my first year of law school. And that class had probably the biggest impact on me as a human being than any other class ever that I took in law school after that. Because I saw the injustice, the great injustice that was being handed down by our criminal justice system on people of color, Black people, poor people. And one of the skill sets I've always had was when I like to argue. The other skill set that was important was that I always fought for the underdog. And not only did the reading about the cases where there was rampant racism and being justified, I also started to see, and that I wanted to fight for those people, I also started to see the interactions that I had with law enforcement growing up, and how that I was treated those ways that I had read about for other people of color. And when you're living it, it seems normal. When you're reflecting on it after learning that there's two different justice systems, you realize how it's been impactful for you. And so that was also, it became a personal crusade. To one, I understood that I had been impacted, my family had been impacted by the criminal justice system in a negative way, and similar to those that I was reading about. And I really wanted to fight to change that system. And so one of my mentors, thankfully, knew a woman of color in the night program at Golden Gate who was working for the Solano County Public Defender's Office. And he got me in contact with her. She got me an interview. And I then started interning with the Solano County Public Defender my second year of law school. What I've learned in doing this advocacy work is that it is always an environment in which you're learning. There's always something new occurring. There's never the same incident repeated twice. I've also learned that my personal experiences with law enforcement, both my family, with myself, with my daughter's father, is that I know that your worst moment is not who you are. And so I understand that it's not a judgment, that there's no judgment, that's not a character flaw. You're not a bad or evil person because you've made a mistake. And you shouldn't be judged, your whole life shouldn't be judged by the 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 mistakes, because there are about a dozen great things that people have done that go unrecognized, and that the only thing that people become labeled as is the crime they committed. And so I know that the experiences I've had, that I've seen, make it so that I can connect with my clients. I also don't sit in a seat of judgment of them. I also can identify with the reasons these things happen. And coming from a family where there was mental illness, substance abuse, and violence, I also know how that impacts a person in the long run. And there are many things that I had to overcome in becoming an adult because of the things I witnessed as a child. And so I do understand that people who have substance abuse issues, or people who are recidivate regularly, that there's a lot of trauma there in the past that also guides that behavior. And so there is a reduced responsibility. They're not as culpable as somebody who, was given everything and handed every opportunity. And so I think that being non-judgmental and identifying and really having a personal understanding of how a downward spiral can occur, and that you can also come out of that downward spiral, helps me be the lawyer I am today. And it helps me do the job that I've chosen to do, and will continue to do until I retire. And that's why I went to law school. That's why I became a lawyer. And those are the things I've learned from my experiences as a lawyer. Thank you.